Welcome to the Deal by Me podcast, where we ask guests to tell us your story. Hello there, this is Dr. James W. Smith, your host. We seek to transform lives by encouraging and inspiring. Someone encouraged and inspired this host, a former lawyer, gambler, inmate, and his life was transformed. The same can happen to you. So when you listen to any of the Deal by Me podcasts, please support this podcast with a donation or a monthly recurring amount for as little as $3. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. What about a shout out to supporters of this podcast, Reverend Quincy Davis, Dr. Lynn Henderson, Kenneth and Donna McDuffie, Olivia Malbrough, Clinton and Johnette Cozart, Leonard and Cynthia Meekins, and John McLaughlin. Check out my encouraging, inspiring, and transforming books. I'm available for speaking engagements, in person, and virtual seminars. So please contact me through my website, www.dealbyme.com. I have with me Theodora Izzard, whose life has been transformed after a spiritual awakening and rapid ascension from the depths of complex PTSD and addiction to now a multi award winning energy healer. Oh, yes, her fun, but no nonsense approach to the spiritual ascension, healing, and transformative life path is authentic, it is refreshing and powerful. I am so grateful to have her come and share her story with us today. Uh, Theodora, would you share with listeners of this podcast a little bit about yourself and where you've been interviewed from?
Hi, yes, thank you so much for having me. Like you said, I'm Theodora Izzard. I'm based in Kent in the UK. Um, I'm a God code healer, and really aim to bring energy healing and the power of God to the spiritual community or any community, really. I think, trying to take God out of the box that sometimes they can be put in is quite important. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely by bringing the energy of unconditional love, which is what I believe God to be, into my life, and using that to be able to heal myself and others, has really, it's saved my life. And so I'm really excited and grateful to be able to have found this modality and be able to share it with the world.
Hmm. Well, thank you so much. This has been interesting. Just reading your bio and your profile has really kind of given me another look at spirituality. I am a minister, a pastor for 32 years before retiring, and so I'm excited, even myself, as a former pastor, and continuing my ministry by doing this podcast to just hear what you have to say because it seems very interesting. So I want to ask you first, being the spiritual person that you are, what is and how uh, have you uh, gotten to where you are in terms of your experience with God? Or maybe I should ask it this way. What is your experience with Him? Did anything particularly happen that caused you to have this great experience, or just share with listeners of this podcast what it may
Cool.
be?
I mean, I was, like I said, I had complex PTSD. I was really struggling with multiple addictions, and I was really the lowest point in my life. I could not cope with the trauma I'd experienced and just general life, really. And my father had just died. This was all 8 years ago. And I had actually gone to a chiropractor, and she was a working medium, and said, there's a man here that wants to speak to you, and was saying things that were so precise. It couldn't, I knew it was my father. And that kind of opened me up to the spiritual world, or, the fact that there was something else going on, because previous to that, I had not been religious or spiritual or anything at all. And so I started learning about energy and different frequencies, and, the power of connecting to something greater than ourselves. And then started learning about energy healing and how to channel that energy. And I had always just had this feeling that the healing energy that I was working with was unconditional love. And so this had gone on, and I was doing specifically angelic Reiki. And then it's probably a couple of years ago, I just started having visions about God specifically. So God was coming through and showing me how he was, able to heal things or change situations. And I was just creating this relationship with God myself that I had just never previously thought was possible. But it really was coinciding with my own trauma healing, and me taking off the blocks of unconditional love from my heart and in my life. And so, and the kind of one of the most powerful experiences I've had with God is I was just sitting in meditation, and he just came and sat with me. And we didn't have to speak, because I knew that the interaction that was going on was kind of beyond our humanness and my mind. But the feeling that I had was just, my heart felt bigger than I could ever have imagined it could feel. And it was so much unconditional love and peace and gentleness. And
well, okay, well, I hear you. Well, let me get back to one thing you say, because I want to make certain listeners understand where you are coming from. I think you said that you saw someone, and you knew it was your father.
Yes.
This was after, I assume, he had deceased. And
yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure the listeners got that. Okay.
Yeah, he had passed about 4 months beforehand.
Okay. I kind of feel that, so I know exactly where you maybe coming from that viewpoint. Now, tell us a little bit about how you truly became spiritual. Now, I'm assuming this is a part of where you were going before I stop you, because something happened. So talk a little bit about what happened.
Yeah, I think becoming spiritual for me it started off with just learning that, there was more than our humanness.
Okay.
And I began, because I was such a skeptic, to be honest, I kind of was coming at things from an energy, a frequency, a quantum physics kind of level. And I needed to understand the kind of the science behind it, like how was this possible? And so that's kind of how I got, because then when I started to learn about the different frequencies that emotions hold, and I then understood, okay, so if I need to make my life better and be in this, I'd made a promise to myself basically one day. I just kind of woke up and just went, I just don't want to be sad anymore. And I just knew that the only way that I was going to be able to reach this unconditional love was to just keep working on myself. And I think that's really something that, the more that I have grounded into my own humanness, the closer that I have got to God, and more divinity that I have been able to anchor into my life.
Wow, it's very powerful, very powerful. Your story is really interesting, very intriguing, and very powerful, as a matter of
Thank
fact.
you.
So obviously you had an addiction.
Mhm.
Do you have a problem talking about what those addictions were, or if it was only one? And how did you beat it? How did you get beyond it?
Mhm.
And my assumption again would probably be because of your experience with God and your spiritual awakening, but just elaborate on it a little bit more
Of course.
for us, please.
So I was addicted to food. I was binge eating a lot, and I had been binge eating since I was a child, actually, to be able to kind of try and just suppress how I felt.
Mhm.
Then I was started to drink, and I was drinking really heavily. At one point, I was a high functioning alcoholic. At one point I would be on, 2 or 3 bottles of wine a day. Um, Again, it was just to kind of suppress. Everything was to suppress. And then I started also taking recreational drugs, especially a lot of cocaine, because ironically, I think I had got to the point where, well, I started taking cocaine because it gave me the ability to drink more.
Mm.
So then I didn't have to, I didn't pass out, or I didn't, it gave me the ability to not have to stop. And but then I liked how it gave me confidence and things like that. So, but it was all really because I had crippling social anxiety. I couldn't, it was everything was just trying to put a band-aid on things that I just couldn't cope with. And I was, it's the medicine that we can find when we don't know how to heal and help ourselves feel better in any other way.
Hmm.
So really the healing for me it came in hand with this kind of learning to love myself and trying to find this unconditional love, because I understood that love that I was seeking from others was only going to be within myself. And so this path inwards to teach me how to connect with myself, teach me how to feel, and to teach me that, things that had felt overwhelming and things like that in the past, actually, I could cope with that now. So a lot of it, was inner child work. I've done pretty much every healing modality, and
Mm-hmm. I
I was
got it.
in, everything. But, as well as energy healing, I'd also done kind of standard psychotherapy, and I've always done those alongside each other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but really, the addictions fell away the more that I learned how to feel.
Okay. Okay. I hear you. I'm struck by something in your profile,
Mm-hmm.
and I want you to kind of talk about it a little bit because it was interesting. You said, and I quote, "I'm not your usual woo-woo, airy, fairy, spiritual type,
Yeah.
but instead bring authenticity, honesty, and wisdom to dynamic and activating conversation." Kind of talk about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What you mean,
Yeah,
so that
sure.
listeners could get a better understanding of who you are.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think I see it a lot, the spiritual way of life or spirituality, I think, has especially more recently, I think because of the rise of social media and things becoming Instagrammable, I see it a lot where people are focusing on trying to sell an aesthetic and sell that as energy healing. And I see it a lot in events that are being organized and events that I have been to, for example, with sound healing or things like that. But we're losing the connection with God, with the spirit world, with whatever kind of higher power you choose to use. I think it's that connection with the divine is being lost.
Okay.
Equally, I see a lot of people that are kind of very love and light and try and sell. They kind of basically spiritually bypass the work that actually needs to be done. There's always this thing of like, well, if you pray for courage, God will give you an experience where you're scared. You know what I mean? Like, and for me, like I said, the more that I've connected with the spiritual world and things like that is by rooting down and digging into my trauma. So, do you know what I mean? So I think I kind of want to just explain to people that actually trying to be all like airy fairy and we all just love angels and everything's pink and fluffy all the time, like that's not real life, and that's not how actually I think God wants us to exist.
I understand. I hear you very well. Let me ask you this. How do you create your resilience? Because I'm listening to you and I feel that. How did it come about? Tell us a little bit about it.
The only thing that's actually coming to mind is that it was a gift given to me by God.
Wow.
Because I know I have experienced a lot of high level trauma in my life. And there have been moments, especially through my healing journey, when having to turn and face that again to be able to process it and heal it, that I have wanted to give up and that I have wanted to end my life, or I just felt like I couldn't do it anymore.
Wow.
But there was always this mantra, this thought, this feeling that would come over me that said love wins.
Wow. This is awesome. Theodora, I have listeners of this podcast who have experienced a lot in their lives. Some of them maybe where you have been, some may be going through something now, or they've just come out of it, or what have you. I want to know, what would you say to listeners of this podcast who are in those kind of situations or circumstances that will give them some encouragement, that will be inspiring to them, well, that will hopefully be transforming? Is there anything that you would say to them that will help them along that line?
I would love to tell people that to not give up on themselves.
Powerful.
Because the love that they can find within themselves is there, and they are worthy of feeling that and connecting to that and receiving all of that love. And no matter how dark and hopeless and pointless life can feel sometimes, everything you need is inside you to be able to change and transform the life that you're living at the moment.
Powerful. Very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. I'm here, you almost got me to a point where I am speechless, Theodora. I have to admit you're saying things that I know personally, because I've been through some of the same things. I was a compulsive gambler. I had other little problems that I was dealing with, you know,
Mm.
and it caused me to do some crazy stuff. But when I got to the point of really uh, getting where you are now, things made a big difference. So I can feel it. So I know what you're saying. You you stated something that's important, and I want you to talk about it a little bit more because you mentioned a little something about it earlier, and that is after experiencing so much trauma in your life, why do you believe love wins?
Because otherwise, what's the point?
Mm,
Like, I mean,
wow.
if you know, if otherwise,
What's the point?
what's
Mm,
the point?
that's all you have to say. That's all you have to say. Otherwise,
Yeah.
what's the point? Mm, wow. This is amazing. Amazing. Listeners, don't go into place because we have a few more questions and a little bit more conversation that we have with Theodora. So hang on. Uh, but first, I want to ask Theodora Izzard uh, if there are listeners who would like to learn more about you, if you have a book, what have you, website, how can they get in contact with you?
So my website is www.seerhealerguide.co.uk. But if you Google Theodora Izzard, I'm sure I will come up.
Okay.
And there's more in depth about my kind of healing journey and how I've learned to work with energy. And you can also, there's more about God coding and how you can work with me and things like that, all available on there. So
Okay. Great. All right. That sounds good. Listeners, I hope you hear that and I hope you will take it to heart. What is your experience of divine union? You talk about that a little bit. Could you tell
mm.
us your experience?
I think it comes on multiple levels. Um, for me, the experience is it's been learning about the feminine and masculine energies within ourselves, the divine masculine and feminine energies within our our higher selves, maybe our souls, or however you want to think of that kind of energy, but also the kind of symbiosis of the connection between the earth and the spirit world and God, and that whole all of those things mixed up together, and how to create balance and peace and harmony and union between those. But also through that, then finding that divine union between myself and God. And that has really been the most powerful thing that I could have experienced, um and never imagined that I could experience.
Okay.
That's, I think, the difference.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. Awesome. This is a very interesting question that I want to ask you now,
Mm-hmm.
but just talking with you, it I have to. Uh, why do you believe that you are what the spiritual community really needs? I'm curious. Why do you
Mm,
believe that?
great question. Um, I'm unfailingly honest,
Okay.
and my the thing is with me is that I didn't go looking for this spiritual experience.
Mm.
All of the spiritual experiences came and found me. Like when I started having visions and when I started hearing God and things, I wasn't reading books or watching, I wasn't searching for things. God was coming to me and
Mm.
I kind of understood. And now I'm like, okay, for whatever reason you want to work through me, I'm open to that.
Mm.
So I will I will always, all I can do is be myself
Mhm. Yeah.
and show up and do what I'm asked to do every day. And the people that are gonna, resonate with that and connect with me, they're gonna do that. And I'm okay with people not wanting to do that as well, but I just have faith in that the path that I've been put on and
Mhm.
continue to walk down.
I, I hear you. I hear you well. I hear you well. It's very interesting. You are an amazing individual. I was thinking about when you say you didn't go searching for it yourself. God found you. Uh, I always tell my congregation when I'm sharing information to them, I tell them that they say people will say that I found the Lord. I say God is not lost, so you can't find him. He's not lost.
Mhm.
He finds you.
Yeah.
And what you said falls right in line to my own concept of Christianity and spirituality. So I'm very interesting in your talk. This is really inspiring today. Oh,
Thank you.
what does authenticity means to you, and how do you hope to change the world? You got some big ambition here, Theodora. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if they're my ambitions or God's, but yeah, we'll see.
Okay, I like
We're
that.
going along for the ride, but yeah,
Okay, I like it.
yeah. What is authenticity for me is living in truth, but
Okay.
we can't find our truth until we're diving into it. We have
Mhm.
to be able to feel and experience and and work out, okay, who am I? Like, and until you've done that work and kind of started to peel away the layers of like, okay, well, actually, I'm not a role that I play or
Mhm.
in other people's lives. Like, it's not you kind of have to, in a weird way, to be able, you kind of have to get really selfish,
Mm.
not but or self-centered,
Mhm.
like, so that you can always come back to yourself and go, okay, is this how I truly feel? Is this
Mm.
my actual truth? Is this what feels right in my soul?
Mm.
And it's always going to be it's a process of life, really, because we're always, the more that we learn about it ourselves and the more that we heal and the more that we kind of go along this journey and experience more things, we're going to learn more about ourselves and be
Mm.
able to dig deeper into that authenticity, to be
Wow.
able to then show up for other people and provide a safe space where they can show up as their authentic selves as well. Because if we can't do that and say, do you know what, I will love myself, all of the parts of myself, and show up knowing that I deserve to be loved as that person. If you can't do that for you, you can't expect other people to show up in your life like that either.
Mhm.
So it's about creating the safe space within you and then externally as well.
Wow. Wow. Well, there you have it. Theodora Izzard sharing her truth with us today. And I've just been excited and thrilled to have her share with us. Her life has been transformed after spiritual awakening and rapid ascensions from the depths of complex PTSD. PTSD and addiction to now a multi-award winning energy healer. What an awesome guest we've had the opportunity to hear from today.
Thank you. Thank you so
Uh,
much. It's been a real joy talking to you. I'm really, really grateful for you having me here.
And until next time, peace and blessings to each of you.